Okay, we're going to make some coconut cake. This is slightly different to some of the cakes that we've made before because we're going to use the rubbing in method. We have done this to make pastry before but not an actual cake. So the rubbing in method, remember, is when you use your hands to lift up the flour and the butter, rubbing it together, letting it fall back down, collecting air on the way back down, and then we add in liquid to make it into our sponge mixture. I've got all my ingredients laid out here just so that I know that I've got everything. Equipment wise, you're going to need some scales, you're going to need a large bowl, a sieve, not absolutely essential, but if you've got a sieve then you can use it. A spatula or a wooden spoon would do. We're going to need a fork, a spoon and some measuring spoons. The only measuring spoon that you're actually going to need is a 15mm spoon. If you don't have any measuring spoons, you can use a measuring jug. And I'll show you how to do that just in a little minute. If you don't have either of those two things, you can use a tablespoon, because a tablespoon is roughly the same as 15mm, so you'll be able to use that. I have already preheated my oven, or it's on preheating just now, so it's at 160 at the moment, or gas mark 3 if you've got a gas cooker at home. First step in the recipe is to soak our coconut, so we have 50 grams of coconut. I'm going to measure that out first of all. I've got my scales, making sure that it's 0 obviously before we start, so if they're not at 0 it's not going to give an accurate measurement. Carefully putting the coconut in so it don't drop it all over the place until it's up to 50. Okay, so 50 grams. You've got the little nice leaf there. And then I'm going to put this just into, actually I might use a little bowl. Any kind of bowl, anything that's going to be able to hold this, a cup would do, a mug, whatever you've got. That's going to go all into there. And then we need 60ml of milk, so I've got my milk here just in a measuring jug. If you've got a measuring jug, you're going to fill it up to the 60ml, so 50 is about there, a little bit above that. If you've just got measuring spoons, we're going to do 4 15ml measuring spoons straight into the coconut so that this can mix together. There we go. Just going to give that a little stir together just to make sure all the milk and the coconut is actually in contact with each other. And then I'm going to leave that to the side until later on. Just make sure all of it comes off the spoon. You can use your hands, obviously you've washed your hands before we started. There we go. Okay, so next up we are going to start rubbing in our butter into our flour. So we need to measure out our flour, our salt and our butter. So flour, we're going to need 115 grams. So again, make sure it's at 0. If you've got electric scales at home, you're going to just put this straight into a little bowl and then you're going to sieve it into your larger bowl. We just need a little pinch of salt, so a little bit of salt into your hand, about that much, pinch it together, put that into your bowl, and then this is going to go into our sieve, and then sieve. Remember when we're sieving something, we're trying to add some air to it, so make sure there's space for it to fall down through the air. We're trying to get rid of any lumps. going to need that anymore, so I'm going to put that over by the sink. It needs to be washed up later on. Our butter, we are going to use 55 grams of butter, or margarine, that's fine. For this, I would make sure that your margarine has at least 70 grams per 100 grams of fat in it. So if you look at the label on the back, if it says 100 grams and then you want the fat to say 70 grams, if you get one that says 40 grams, it's really watery, which makes it quite difficult to rub into something like this. So make sure it's got 70 grams of fat per 100 grams. The butter is going to go into our bowls, and then we're going to break that up into little pieces. Now, to prevent this all going all over your hands, you're going to completely cover it in flour and then break it up into your little pieces, and that'll mean that it doesn't get stuck all over your hands. The butter should be nice and cold, so keep it in the fridge as long as possible, and then when you need to bring it out, so you're lifting it up, rubbing back and forward. You'll see that just my fingers have flour and butter on them, not my full hand, so I'm just picking it up, letting it fall back down, gathering some air on the way back down. You want to lift it up just above the top of the bowl so that it's got space to fall back down. If you do it too much in the bowl like this, you're just going to melt the butter and then it's not really what we're looking for. And if you do it too high, the chances are you're going to miss the bowl. But we want to make sure that we've got all of that flour and butter that we've measured out in the bowl and in use. Okay, just keep going until you have got the kind of consistency of breadcrumbs or sand, it kind of looks like. And then when you think you're finished, dust off your hands, give your bowl a good shake. It should look like that, nice and even. All the big lumps will come to the top if there are any, so you can sort those out. That'll do. Give it a good shake and leave that just there. You're now going to wash your hands. Okay, next up we need to prepare our eggs. So we need 1 egg for this. And we're going to crack that into a little cup or a small bowl. Again, just whatever you've got. Eggshell goes straight in the bin, and wash your hands again, just in case there's any raw egg on your hands. I'm going to use a fork just to beat that together. Just like so. We're also going to need our sugar at this point as well, so we're going to measure out 55 grams of sugar. Again, make sure we're at 0. Spin that in carefully. We're then going to mix all of this together. So we've got our sugar in here. I'm using the spatula just to bring it all together. We've got our coconut and our milk. Mix that in as well. And then our egg. You might need to add a little bit of milk because we're looking for a soft dropping consistency, so the same consistency as like a Victoria sponge or something along those lines. So mix that all together. If you need to add a wee bit of milk, you can. Seems to be okay, I don't need to add in any milk. If it's not this sort of consistency, so remember a dropping consistency, you're going to pick it up like that. If it drops back down like so, then it's ready. If it sticks to the spoon, you're going to need a wee bit more milk, and if it runs off the spoon, you're going to need to add a wee bit more flour in, but if you've measured accurately all the way along, then you should be fine. Just mix it together, a little bit of air in. And then we're going to put it into this loaf tin now. If you don't have a tin exactly like this, you can get these in Tesco or Asda. Any supermarket will have them. They also sell them in home bargains and shops like that. But if you don't have something like that, any tray will do. You can make it round if you've just got a round tin. If you've got a kind of smaller square one, you can use that. But I want it to be roughly about this size. If you don't have any tins that are this small, I would make sure you maybe double up the recipe just to make sure you're going to fill it, because if it's too shallow, if it's too small, the mixture, then it'll just burn. So that's going to go into our loaf tin. Make sure you get all the mixture out. Obviously you've gone to all the boiler and measuring accurately. You want to make sure that you're actually going to use it all. And then we're going to spread that out. I'm going to just have a little dip in the middle, just so that when it rises, it will rise hopefully evenly. And then that's going to go into the oven. Now, when it goes into the oven, it needs to be in total about 20 to 25 minutes until it's golden and well risen. However, 10 minutes into cooking, you're going to bring it out, you're going to sprinkle some extra coconut on top just to give it a nice finish, and then put it back in for another 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so you need to bear that in mind. And put that into the oven just now for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to put our coconut on. Okay, so that's been about 10 minutes. I'm going to bring this out. I've got about a 15ml spoon of coconut that I'm going to sprinkle on top. Really quickly sprinkle that over the top. And then put it back in. That's going to be in for another about 10 minutes or so until it's nice and golden. Okay, so that's the coconut cake out of the oven. It's nice and golden. You can see where I've put in the skewer just to check that it is actually ready. I'm now going to leave that on a cooling tray and just let it cool down.